I'm not saying that. But you're on, we're on probably Facebook or something. Okay, are we ready? Yep. Okay. Yes. Oh, see if we're, oh, yeah.
Zach, are we?
You'll give us a thumbs up when you're ready. If you just. Yep. Everybody that's here waiting for the meeting to start, we're just waiting for some technical stuff. For the comment, when you comment, after you comment, just bring them up to a staff member up at the podium. It's just after you come up to the podium and comment, you can just drop it off.
So when you come up, So when you come up to make the comment, you could probably just leave them right here on the dais, and then we'll collect them. It's just so that the minute taker can actually see who commented. So, thank you.
We're good? Thank you. Okay, let's get started. Welcome, everybody. I call to order the Planning City Commission meeting. It is June 15th, 2023 at 6:34. I will try to speak as loud as I can into this thing. I'm going to go through who's on the stand up here. Very far to my left, we have Jared Hall. Next to him, we have G.L. Critchfield. Then we have Commissioner Travis Ney. Next to him is Commissioner Ned Hacker. My name is Jake Pearson. Commissioner Maren Patterson to my right. And then Michael Richards. Then we have Zachary Smallwood with staff, Susan Nixon, and Mustafa Al-Janabi with staff. This meeting is being recorded and live streamed online at murraycitylive.com and facebook.com/murraycityutah. There will be a public comment section during the meeting. There are comment forms in the back that you can pick up and fill out. If you want to make a comment when you come up to the podium and make a comment, please state your name and address when you do so. limit your comments to 2 minutes, and please speak into the microphone so not only everybody here can hear you, but also so the recording can pick up your voice. Those watching remotely can also submit comments via email to planningcommission@murray.utah.gov. And this is the only way that you can submit a comment if you're watching remotely. So if you're watching a video and you comment below, we will not see that, so please use the email if you'd like to submit a comment. Okay, one thing before we get going, we are going to follow the agenda with the exception of one change. The item number 5, the land use text amendment has been withdrawn, so if you are here for that, then we will not be talking about that. Other than that, unless there's anything I missed, we'll start on the agenda. Okay. The first item is the approval of minutes from April 6, 2023. Did everybody have a chance to read those?
Yes.
And are there any issues or changes, or do we have a motion to approve those?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve the April 6, 2023 minutes as submitted with the 2 minor corrections that were made in the pre-meeting.
Great, we have a motion from Commissioner Nate. Do we have a second?
I second it.
We have a second from Commissioner Hacker. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Perfect. Okay, does anybody have a conflict of interest tonight?
No.
No.
Either do I. We have no findings of facts, so we're going to move directly onto agenda item number 4, Premier Strand Heating and Air, and this is going to be presented by Mustafa Al-Janabi.
Hi, everyone. So regarding this property, it is located at 300 West, 6172 South. It's in the MG zone, general manufacturing. So far, the business is basically just fabrication shop for HVAC. The building is currently at 2,000 square foot, which is that blue square over there. There is 2 entrances to the property going through it, and the orange lines, those are the entrances on the north side and on the east side. Sorry, bad directions. So on those 2, there's like 9 parking lots that are available in the building itself. The building will be occupied for at least with 1 person. There is the floor plan for the building. As it is shown, it is a very small area, just being used for manufacturing, basically. This is the shop from the outside. This is the east side entrance. This is, this is the east side entrance. This is it, again, from the other side. This is the north side entrance, and this is it from the street view. So according to the findings that we have, based on it, that it is recommended in this area to have that subject to be approved as a conditional use and to go forward by the staff. These are the recommended by us. And as I've been told by my senior planner, that the applicant is not being present here due to some family conditions, although he'll be able to follow all these recommendations given to us. So,
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Mustafa? No? Great. Then I guess we'll go ahead and open the public comment period. Once again, if you want to make a public comment, please come up to the podium, state your name and address, keep your comments to 3 minutes. And if you're watching remotely, again, the email address is planningcommission@murray.utah.gov. See nobody here who would like to make a comment? Do we receive any emails? Okay,
No emails.
thank you. In that case, we're going to close the public comment period. And we can have a discussion or we can entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the conditional use permit for Premier Strand Heating and Air to conduct the metal fabrication and contracting at the property address 6172 South, 300 West, Suite Number B, subject to the 7 conditions.
Thank you. We have a motion from Commissioner Patterson. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a second from Commissioner Richards. Mustafa, can you do a roll call vote or somebody?
Do you want, okay. Commissioner Patterson,
Yes.
Commissioner Richards,
Yes.
Commissioner Nay,
Yes.
Commissioner Hacker,
Yes.
and Chair Pearson.
Yes. Okay, perfect. Let's move on to agenda item number 6. We're skipping number 5. Okay, number 6 is let me get it up here. The Stubler subdivision. Thank you. Oh, it's on my screen. At 6847 South Jefferson Street, and this is Zachary that's going to present it.
Yes, thank you, Chair. This is a request from Shane Hoffheim looking to subdivide the property at 6847 South Jefferson Street. It's located here, just, let's see, three properties from the border of Midvale and Murray. This is proposed to be a flag lot. It is in the R18 zone, so we do allow flag lots subject to receiving approval by this body as the land use authority. Here's the proposed flag lot, as you can see. So the first, their proposal is to use the north side as their egress and ingress for the property. It's going to be the minimum 28 foot, which is required, so 20 feet of asphalt with 4 feet of landscaping on either side. So a couple zoning standards here. So for flag lots, it's required that the first lot have 8,000 square feet without the stem of the property. It does meet that. The total area is 13,318 square feet. The second lot has to be 125% of the underlying zone. So that would be 10,000 square foot minimum. The proposal is to have lot 2 be 11,108 square feet. Staff didn't have a lot of concerns here. However, on the site plan, there was a discrepancy. They were showing 20 feet on their front and rear yard setbacks. Staff did conduct just a quick measurement to make sure. So they do, if you separate here and, you know, push that back 5 feet, they would still have a buildable area of at least 3,600 square feet of just pure land without even going up. So it's definitely able to fit a home there. Excuse me. And it does meet, the current house will meet all the setbacks required. Yeah, so it's a pretty easy thing. So we are recommending that the staff grant preliminary and final subdivision approval for the Stubler subdivision located at 6847 South Jefferson Street, subject to the 8 conditions in the staff report. Are there any questions?
Questions? Nope. I also have none.
Sorry, it's
No
not a
problem.
question. I just noticed in my packet that I have 10 conditions
Wait, what?
as opposed to the 8 on the board.
Let me confirm. Maybe that was Zach just going too fast.
There are 10.
I apologize. There are 10 that are in the packet. I apologize. That was my
Do
bad.
you want me to read the other 2?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, number 9 is the subdivision plat shall be recorded within 1 year of the final approval by the planning commission, or the plat shall be null and void. And number 10 is all detached structures located on the property. Number 2 shall be removed prior to recordation.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So yes, those 2 additional ones that are listed in the staff report, but are not on the screen right now.
Thank you, Commissioner Nate. Any other comments? Okay, if not, then we'd like to invite the applicant to come up to the podium if they're present. Please state your name and address.
My current address where I live now?
That would be fine.
Okay, Shane Hoffine, 4077 Ron's Court, Riverton, Utah.
Okay, perfect. Have you had a chance to look at these conditions?
Yeah,
Okay, and are you able to comply with all of those?
yes.
Perfect. Is there any additional information you'd like to share with the commissioners?
No, you guys have been great to work with. I grew up in Murray and I love this city, so, yeah.
Okay, Perfect. Do any of the commissioners have questions for the applicant? No. Perfect. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Okay, we're now going to open the public comment period. So please, if you'd like to make a public comment, please come up to the podium. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes. And again, those watching remotely can submit their comments by emailing planningcommission@murray.utah.gov. I see nobody here, and we have no comments coming in via email, so we're going to close the public comment portion, and we can have a discussion, or we can entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion that the planning commission grant preliminary and final subdivision approval for the proposed Stubler subdivision located at 6847 South Jefferson Street, subject to the following conditions, 1 through 10 in our packet, and on the screen 1 through 8. That's the 2 that Commissioner Ney read aloud for the audience.
Perfect, thank you, Commissioner Hacker. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second from Commissioner Patterson. Let's do a vote.
Okay, Commissioner Hacker,
Yes.
Commissioner Patterson,
Yes.
Commissioner Richards.
Yes.
Commissioner Ney,
Yes.
and Chair Pearson.
Yes,
Thank you.
congratulations, and we wish you luck on your project. Okay, let's move on to agenda item number 6, which is 7, which is Burger Station and Burger Place condominiums. And this will be presented by Susan Nixon. Susan.
Thank you. This application for Burger Station and Burger Place condominiums is to vacate the Burger Place condominiums and then also create a new subdivision called Burger Station. The properties are addressed from 171 West to 277 West on Burger Lane. The properties are highlighted in the green there on the screen. It consists of 12 existing parcels or lots. The total site is 9.397 acres or some 409,000 square feet. The property is located in our MCMU, our mixed-use zone, and is also surrounded similarly with the same zoning. So this request includes to vacate the existing Burger Place condominiums plat, eliminating Unit 1 and 2 along with the common area, include the vacated properties, and consolidate the 12 lots or parcels into 2-lot subdivision. And the intent for this is to eventually develop a multifamily project on the new Lot 102, and then the current owner of what will be Lot 101 plans to retain the existing building and parking. So this is the proposed Burger Place subdivision, 2 lots. You can see Lot 101 and 102. And the MCMU does not require a minimum acreage for a lot. It just has to meet setbacks, density, parking, landscaping, et cetera, for the project itself. So in reviewing this, staff consulted with all various departments. There is an existing power easement recorded on the plat, the existing plat, and also will have to be recorded on the new Burger Place subdivision plat. And then here's some photos of Burger Lane. They are off of an access off of 3rd West. It's narrow, does meet the minimum requirements for a development, or they will have to improve it based on the proposal in the future. So, and then the corner building is owned by Caltech. They are also one of the owners of the properties which are being proposed tonight. Let's see. So state code, sections 10.9A, 604 and 609, and Murray City Code, section 16.04.030, does require the Land Use Authority, which is the Planning Commission, that they review any vacation or subdivision proposals and make a decision on that. And we did send out 65 notice to the surrounding residents within 500 feet and did not have any comments back. So based on that, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission grant approval for to vacate Burger Place condos and grant preliminary and final subdivision for the Burger Station subdivisions on the properties addressed 171, 173, 175, 177, 179, 237, 257, 261, 273, and 277 West Burger Lane, subject to the conditions outlined on your screen and in your staff report.
Thank
Happy to
you.
answer any questions.
Thanks. Anybody have any questions for Susan?
I do have a question about frontage on Commerce. Is that wide enough for an actual access and ingress egress for lot number 2?
What will be lot 102? They will have to dedicate, part of it, yes, they will have to meet the city width for a public road.
Okay.
I don't know if it does right now, but it will have to for any future development.
And then the northern is also, Burger Lane will be updated for the northern access.
Yes.
Okay.
Any additional comments? Okay, thank you. We'd like to now invite the applicant to come up to the podium. And please state your name and address.
Jared Shoup, 7927 South Ashley Downs Court.
Thank you for being here. Have you had a chance to review these conditions?
I have.
Okay, and would you be able to comply with those?
I would.
Okay, perfect.
I do have one comment though,
Yeah,
Susan.
please go ahead.
The access out to Commerce, we have on Burger, but then the little piece behind Caltech, I believe that it's wide enough to be a public, but it would actually be a private entrance.
Yes, but that will be reviewed with the actual project itself.
Okay,
Where right now it's not important.
Okay.
Not applicable.
any questions or comments for me?
I don't have any questions. Any other commissioners have any questions? Okay, unless you have anything else you want to
Okay,
share. we
you
thank
guys have
for
been
being
great to
here.
work with, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we will now open the public comment period. So if you'd like to make a public comment, please come up to the podium and state your name and address, and please keep your comments to 3 minutes. And once again, if you're watching remotely, you can submit your comment by emailing planningcommission@murrayutah.gov. See nobody here. We received no comments via email, so we're going to go ahead and close the public comment period. I guess we can have a discussion or entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that the Planning Commission grant approval to vacate Burger Place condominiums and grant preliminary and final subdivision approval for Burger Station subdivision on the properties located 171, 173, 175, 177, 179, 237, 257, 261, 273, 277 West Burger Lane, subject to the following 8 conditions listed.
Thank you. We have a motion from Commissioner Richards. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second from Commissioner Nay. Let's do a vote.
Okay, Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. Nay,
Yes.
Mr. Hacker,
Yes.
Ms. Patterson,
Yes.
Chair Pearson.
Yes. Okay, congratulations on your approval and good luck on your project. Okay, we're going to move to agenda items number 8 and 9. And this is for the Applegate condominiums amended and Fuji Townhomes. And this will also be presented by Susan Nixon.
Thank you. I think it's what we're all here for, it looks like tonight. So thank you. This application is for Applegate subdivision amended, to amend the Applegate subdivision condominium to, for permanent and final, and also for conditional use for Fuji Townhomes, which is a multifamily development proposal. The properties are generally addressed 770 West on Applegate Drive. Here's a aerial map of the subject property. It's currently 23.7 acres. The proposal is to split out a 5.11 acre parcel in order to develop 42 rental townhomes. I did want to make a statement that it is the policy and practice of the Murray City planning staff that every application that comes in for subdivision or conditional uses is reviewed on its own merit. And we take the application, review the code, discuss the issues or proposal with various city departments, and then also take into account the surrounding area. with all that, then we then come up with our staff report, and again, they are all based on its own merit. So having said that, this is a proposal tonight. The property, as you see on the map above, is currently zoned RM15. The RM15 zone allows up to 12 acres, or 12 units per acre. This proposal, if it is approved, would equal about 8 units per acre. So it's under the maximums allowed. You can see that it's mainly surrounded by, the yellow area is a single-family residential area, mainly, mostly surrounded by residential. And then to the east is, the blue is office use, and then the red and pink are commercial, and then the other one is RM15, similar zoning, kind of in that brownish grayish area color. Here are some photos of the Applegate community. These are on the perimeter of the property. So upper left is a view from Murray Boulevard, looking into the community. And then, of course, that's obvious, the Applegate sign there, and that's on the corner of 5400 South and Murray Boulevard. It's, I didn't say, it's on the north side of 53rd and the west side of Murray Boulevard. And then again, down on the lower left is a view, street view, going into the project. And again, on the right is just the corner intersection there of 53rd and Murray Boulevard. These are photos from the inside the community. They are, you can see there's some of the existing units. It does have the clubhouse on the upper right. Lower left is the back of the clubhouse, and the very far left of that photo is the tennis courts. And I think also where the cell tower is. And then the lower right is the end of Applegate Drive. So this request is to, as I said, to split off the 5.11 acre parcel from the 23.7 acre parcel of Applegate. Applegate is owned by Applegate HOA. The applicant is Applegate LLC. They are two different and distinct entities. So with this proposal, they would realign what is now Applegate Drive. They would relocate it to the north and west, and it will become Fuji Avenue, which is currently private and would remain private. Also with that, we'll relocate the utilities in Fuji Avenue. And with this request, they are asking to connect Fuji Avenue to the west for the project to Spring Clover Drive, which is a public road. Our code, when this project was built in the 1970s, we didn't have a requirement for so many accesses to developments. Since then, we have adopted the code that mandates any multifamily projects that have more than 100 units must have at least 2 accesses. So that is why the applicant is proposing to connect to Spring Clover Drive in order to meet that requirement. Also, again, to develop the 42-unit rental townhome project on the 5.11 acres. Both the Applegate and Fuji communities, if this is approved, will have vehicular, pedestrian, and utility access easements, cross-access easements. And that will be a reciprocal access easement. We have a copy of that, and that's given to the Planning Commission in our packets. And then both communities would share the existing amenities and the proposed amenities, and I'll cover those in a minute. Just a little history on this property, because we've all seen this for over the past 5+ years. In 2018, the applicant applied to change the zoning. It was at that time R18. It was actually non-conforming in the R18. They proposed to change it to RM15, which is more in line with what it is. And then during that process, there is an existing cell tower on the site. Cell towers are not allowed in the RM15 zone. They were allowed in the R18. So when the zoning was changed, the cell tower became legal non-conforming. In order for legal non-conforming, you can relocate or expand or relocate on the same property as long as it's on that same property. So the applicant applied for approval for an expansion and to relocate that cell tower to a different location closer to 5300 South of Murray Boulevard. In 2020, Applegate Condominiums received preliminary subdivision and PUD approval and conditional use by the Planning Commission. And the approvals are good for 2 years. The approval lapsed in June of 2022. And then this application was submitted to amend the condos and withdraw the 5.11 acres. And then also applied for the conditional use for the townhome rental units. The 5.11 acres, on the right is the area of the existing Applegate community, and highlighted in green. And then on the left is the plat. I kind of wanted to line them up so you can kind of get an idea as to where it's located. Let's see. So this area here that's got this little red perimeter around it, that is the 5.11 acres. And this has been skewed, so it's, but I just wanted to get a comparison so we get oriented where it's at. Applegate currently has 172 condominium units. They're individually owned. This proposal for the 42 units would be owned by one entity, and they would be for rental units. So it would be a total of 214 if this is approved. Site plan, I'm probably going to stay on this site plan for a few minutes. So on the right hand is Murray Parkway, also 700 West. A lot of people refer to it as 700 West. They have access currently off of Murray Parkway onto Applegate Drive. The proposal would be to modify, reduce the width of Applegate Drive, which is currently about a 75-foot right-of-way, width right-of-way, down to about 43 feet. It also will be relocated to the north and west of where it currently is, and would be reduced to about 43 feet. The 43 feet would consist of 6-foot sidewalks on each side, and then 2.5 feet of rolled curb and gutter, and then 26 feet of hard surface, which is the minimum required by fire department. The units there's some that you see as in blue and some in yellow. That is just depicts the difference in the floor plans. That's really all that means. So there are a couple of different floor plans that they've proposed with this. So the proposal is for Applegate Drive to be relocated to what would be Fuji Drive, and then connect to Spring Clover Drive, which is over on the left-hand side of the map. And they are also proposing to have an access gate showing up. Oh, okay, right here. An access gate located approximately at this location. The access gate would be controlled. You would have to have a key fob or access code or transponder in order to get in and out of Applegate. Proposal, the city had concerns with the connection to Spring Clover Drive and any impacts that would be to the residential neighborhood to the west. Neighborhood to the west. When we reviewed this, we decided, based on the traffic study, there was a traffic study in 2019 and again revised in 2022. Based on the traffic study and the existing streets to the west, we are recommending that an additional gate be installed at the connection at Spring Clover Drive. And it's not showing up. There we go. At the connection where Fuji would connect to Spring Clover Drive. That gate would be emergency access only. It would fulfill the secondary access requirement per our code. And the gate would be controlled by Murray City staff, Murray City, I should say, for emergency access only. So fire, police, and also for maintenance of the sewer cleanup for public services. The traffic impacts study that was conducted in 19 and again in 2022 indicated that there would be 5 to 10% traffic going to the west, and which is only equivalent to 60 to 100 cars per day, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when the residential neighborhoods to the west are already bogged down with traffic, and a lot of them merge onto Halcyon. Halcyon gets bogged down with traffic and there's speeding concerns. I'm just glossing over the traffic issues. If the Planning Commission would like, the Murray City Senior Engineer is here tonight, and he could expand all the details of this traffic if you'd like. So, let's go to the next one. All right, so on the left is the diagram of the Fuji Avenue connection to Spring Clover Drive. You'll see that there's this little triangular section over on the left-hand side. The boundaries overlap somewhat, and so those would need to be resolved with the recording of the plat. Also, there is a section here where the connection to Fuji Avenue with Spring Clover, part of that would need to be dedicated to the city as part of that public road. And again, this is also the same place that we are recommending that there be the emergency access gate at that location. On the right is the illustration showing approximately where they are proposing to have their access gate into the community. This is the landscape plan. It's not updated, so it shows more units than they're proposing, but it does have the correct configuration and the amenities shown on it. So I thought it would be important to do that. So the actual units are different, so don't pay attention to that. But it shows the configuration of the new Fuji Avenue. The new development would include a sports court, pavilions, barbecue area, and then they would also maintain the existing pool and clubhouse. All those amenities would be shared among both communities, the Fuji and the Applegate. There is also on the upper left, there's doesn't like my finger. Anyway, number 6 on that, right there. Okay. They're proposing to have, they will need to have a detention pond there in order to meet the grade drainage for the project. They have indicated, or they show on the plans, that that would also be a dog park, and utility, water sewer engineering will not allow this for various reasons. So they can't have an official dog park because it will be a detention pond.
Can you clarify a few of those reasons? Natural curiosity. So it's the first time I've seen a
Dog
detention
waste,
basin.
dog waste, bottom
Dog
line.
waste and the, okay.
Yeah, the dog waste is not allowed to be part of that, into the sewer system, water utility system. So that would just need to be changed. These are photos of the existing roads that are in Applegate. Again, I said that they're really wide roads at 75 feet. The upper left shows the width. Well, it's wide and it does have a median in between. It's landscape, trees, it's beautiful. On the right-hand side, along the perimeter of the road, or a combination of fences, walls. They range, there's from cinder block to vinyl, I think to wood to chain link. But there is an existing fence or wall along that perimeter there. I think it's generally 6 feet in height. And then also lower right, you can see kind of the fencing there, again, next to Applegate Drive. Also the lower right, you can see the existing adjacent residential homes. They are a little bit lower in elevation. My GIS and engineering department did review kind of the existing elevations, just to kind of give you an idea of how Applegate relates to the residential neighborhood to the south and west. There is about a 2 to 3.5 foot difference in grade. So the residential neighborhood is lower, 2.5 to 3.5 feet. The RM15 zone does have setback minimums. They are 25 feet rear and front, and then 8 feet minimum on one side, a total of 20 between the two, or between, in this case, with 20 feet between the buildings. And then the maximum height allowed in RM15 is 40 feet. Their proposed dwelling structures, the one that has the highest is 33.5. So they meet all the setbacks and height requirements of the RM15. The staff has no concerns with that. And here are the floor plans. They're proposing to have 2 and 3 bedroom units with basements. Some of them would have walkout basements depending on where they're situated on the site. They range from 1,654 square feet to 1,742. The applicants are proposing to have a 6-foot vinyl fence along the perimeter of the property. And our code does allow where there's a change in grade at the property line, the height can be measured from either side, So if, for instance, it's 6 feet on one side, it would be 8, could be 8 on the other. And we do have that allowance that they can measure either. I would have preferred if we would have got some kind of a rendering or elevation showing the difference in elevation, the existing from the residential to Applegate and the fence and how it would relate to that change in grade. But anyway, they are proposing to have a 6-foot fence, vinyl fence. Staff is recommending an 8-foot solid masonry wall. Projects that we have seen over the years, and several, and just 3 or 4 just recently, we have proposed 8-foot solid masonry walls, which the commission has also required that condition. An 8-foot solid wall helps mitigate any impacts on adjacent neighborhood, the residential neighborhood. Which you say, okay, well, what kind of mitigating factors are there? The existing subdivision, I'm going to go back here. I'm going to go to the aerial here. Not the best photo, but you can see currently the majority of Applegate Drive, the units that are to the north of that, north and east, have at least a 100-foot setback from the residential neighborhood to the west. There are a couple of units down at the south end down here off of Baldwin Park where they're about 40 feet from the property line. And then up in the far northeast corner here, they're about 10 to 15 feet. But the majority of the units are a great distance from the residential neighborhood. With the proposal, they would be 25 feet from the property line. So it does have an impact as far as the residential neighborhood to the west. The proposed townhome development does have connecting sidewalks where you could walk generally anywhere within the community. We are also requesting that there be a continuous sidewalk and that they include one on Gravenstein where there's not one now. Let me talk about parking for a second. The RM15 zone, I'm going to go back. The RM15 zone requires 2.5 parking stalls per unit, and they are, with the proposed townhomes, they would have a 2-car garage and then the ability to park probably 2 cars in front of the garages. So they meet the requirements for the parking, and they also are going to provide an additional 35 parking stalls that are dispersed throughout the development, and those are mainly on Baldwin Park, Ben Davis, Rome Beauty, and Gravenstein Park. So parking is not an issue. They meet the code, and staff has no concerns with that. Excuse me. We did send out 502 notices to the surrounding residents within 500 feet. We did receive a few emails and phone calls. I received an additional 3 today that I'd read into the record when it becomes the public comment portion. So the findings for the conditional use are as shown up above. We feel that with conditions, the proposed multifamily project will comply with the standards of the Murray City Land Use Ordinance. And the proposed Murray family townhome units providing new and needed residential housing opportunities at appropriate density for the area, while providing improvements to existing housing and needed infrastructure. And then third, the proposed multifamily project is in harmony with the future land use map and objectives of the Murray General Plan. Since this is 2 applications, it's for the subdivision amendment and the conditional use. If the Planning Commission chooses to take action on this, we are recommending that they grant preliminary and final subdivision amendment to the Applegate condominiums, subject to the conditions shown above. And then we are also recommending that the Planning Commission approve the conditional use permit for the Fuji townhomes, subject to the conditions shown above. And I think I covered most everything, but I'm happy to answer any question.
Thank you. What questions do any of us have for Susan? None? Okay. Seeing none, I think we will have the applicant or representative of the HOA, Applegate HOA, come up. And please state your name and address.
So the applicant and the HOA are two separate. Would you prefer one before the other, or?
Let's have the applicant come. It says applicant is the HOA.
Applegate LLC is the applicant, and this is Mr. Ross. He is
Yeah.
the representative for the applicant.
I see, but is there two people that we will be?
Yes, so I'll be representing the applicant, and then the HOA president, I believe, is here and is going to speak on behalf of the HOA board.
Whoever's going to represent this application, that's who we want right now.
Okay,
How about
that'll be me. So,
Okay.
awesome. Ryan Wallace, 2659 West Constance Way in South Jordan.
Thank you. And have you had a chance to review all of these conditions?
We have.
And are you willing to comply with all of them?
There's a few that we have concerns about.
Okay? What would you like to tell the commissioner?
Yeah. So just to start, we appreciate the staff's recommendations and the recommendation for approval. We know this is, as you went through with the timeline, this has been a long process, and we understand the difficulties that come because of the kind of protracted timeline. And as you'll hear, the Applegate board is supportive of this. The applicants have gone through the appropriate process to receive approval as required by Utah law to purchase this property from the association. There was a vote to approve this on behalf of the Applegate residents. And we're now here to try to make this work and to pay attention to the specific standards and code sections and requirements that the city can impose and would like to impose on this development. So the first one that we're concerned about is requirement 1H in the conditional use permit application, and I think it's condition 1.0 in the subdivision application regarding the gate. So we've done the traffic analysis, well, and had professionals do the traffic analysis. That's not something I do myself. But the traffic impacts as we've gone through this process, the largest concern that we got from the city and from city staff regarding traffic was traffic flowing down out of the neighborhood onto, I think it's 700 East there. And the traffic that could cause to kind of overload if the neighborhood was to go through the Applegate development. That was the biggest kind of concern and pushback. So in order to alleviate that, we proposed the gate in order to limit it to just those Applegate residents, so that the traffic impacts down onto that intersection wouldn't overwhelm the system. And so that's where the gate came from, and the main reason that we were wanting to put the gate in there. Once we did that, we looked at putting gates on both the closer to the Spring Clover Drive and the place that we put it in the application. And initially, we preferred to put it down by Spring Clover Drive, so it would just be kind of a cleaner separation between the HOA Applegate development and the neighborhood. However, as you can see on that area, that kind of neck of the property and that butts into the existing roadway is very narrow. And trying to get a turnaround, a 100-foot fire code compliant turnaround up in that section was very difficult from an engineering standpoint. And it just ultimately didn't work, and this worked a lot better. And so obviously moving the gate down closer to Murray Parkway, we want to make sure that we're not creating different traffic issues, not down there onto Murray Parkway, but instead don't want to create traffic issues going through the neighborhood. And so we had the traffic, our traffic engineers take a look at it, and they provided a supplemental memorandum that discusses the number of trips daily, as well as kind of the peak hour traffic through the neighborhood. And although they did not do a kind of comprehensive analysis on the neighborhood as a whole, they were conservative in their approach. They think that the actual traffic will be significantly less than 10%, just given the direction and the kind of main connector roads. It doesn't make a lot of sense to send significant traffic through that neighborhood. And so we think that it's much closer and more likely to be on the 5% side. And with that, I think in peak hours, I have the memorandum here, it was four trips during the AM peak hour and 6 during the PM peak hour with the 5%. If you take the more conservative approach, which we want to be prudent, it's 7 during AM peak and 11 during the PM peak hours. And so based on the traffic analysis we've seen, putting the gate where it's located doesn't create undue traffic burden on the surrounding neighborhood, on the road system. And given that there isn't any evidence or proof of that, of significant impacts to traffic, and given that putting a gate with a 100-foot turnaround up there in that narrow strip of property isn't feasible, we would ask that we be allowed to proceed with the one gate. So that's the first issue, and maybe before we move on to the other ones, if there's questions or comments or concerns about that.
Sure, so you're allowing, if the gate's not there, you're allowing the residents to come through your project?
Well, if there weren't any gate whatsoever, then yes, but we got feedback from the city that that's not tenable due to traffic onto Murray Parkway. And then that's why we put the gate there.
I think in this type of neighborhood, with the elementary school just around the corner, a few streets, I think the conservative numbers are probably off. We know what happens in and around our elementary schools. We have problems with multiple elementary schools in this area. The drop-off and pickup times and the waits and impacts to the neighbors that maybe do or don't have kids, it's fairly significant. We've seen that in project after project that we've dealt with. And so I think that the amount of traffic that this would generate may surprise you. And additionally, Murray Parkway is, as everyone in this room will shake their head, Murray Parkway in peak hours is just an abysmal road to be on. And until significant improvements come from the city, it's going to continue to be an abysmal project to be on. Having your neighbors trying to exit out and do a left-hand turn down Murray Parkway and trying to get to the elementary schools is going to be a very, very challenging proposition based on what I see as the current setup and system in that area. I'll let you continue.
Okay, yeah, just in response, the traffic studies that we've had were done by professionals that gave their professional understanding.
Understood, yeah.
And as an attorney, I don't have that expertise, and so the best I can do is rely on the evidence we've been provided, that we've submitted to the city, and that we haven't received any objections to. So we're proceeding on that basis.
Yeah, eventually I'd like to hear from the traffic engineer.
Okay, any other comments on the gate? Okay. The second concern we have is the requirement for the masonry wall and the height of 8 feet, requirement number 7 in the conditional use permit and number 6 in the subdivision application. Our main concern is that an 8-foot masonry wall, there's only one instance that we could find that's allowable under Murray City Ordinance and is required under Murray City Ordinance, and that's where there's a commercial property abutting a residential property. It requires, and it's not a may or a can, but it's shall language in there, that a commercial development next to a residential development must have an 8-foot tall masonry wall. Other than that, if you look at residential by residential development, it's almost uniformly 6 foot high and does not specify a specific material. And so as we were looking at that application, we were a bit concerned and questioned why we were being treated as a commercial development when that's not the case. And so that's where we came back with the 6 foot tall vinyl fence. We understand that under the conditional use permitting statute in Murray City, that there can be additional screening required, but it has to follow the conditional use standard of identifying detrimental impacts specific to this project, and then stating why the conditions that are created are reasonably tailored in order to mitigate those detrimental impacts, and it has to apply to applicable standards that are outlined in the the city ordinance. And we just haven't seen any of that. And so with where if we were to develop this kind of as in a permitted use in a permitted zone with residential next to residential development, we would actually be prohibited from putting in an 8-foot tall fence or wall. And there isn't any requirement for masonry. We're curious as to why that requirement is being imposed beyond what the law permits, and in fact, don't think that that's allowed. And particularly with the vinyl fence, as opposed to a masonry wall, if we're talking about sight and sound screening, which we understand is an important consideration when trying to minimize the sight lines and impacts on the surrounding neighbors, there really isn't a significant difference given the nature of the neighborhood and the existing Applegate development between masonry and vinyl. And then finally, I went and drove up near the development this morning and took a look at the fences. It's almost all chain link fences and wooden fences currently. And so the concerns that in the code it says that it must match the existing character and nature of the neighborhood, we think that a vinyl fence meets that criteria. Questions regarding that requirement?
Our Brad Ash project on 53rd was residential to residential. What did we require for that?
For which one?
The Brad Ash on 53rd, just to the east of this project.
Oh, so that was.
Brad Reynolds, sorry.
Brad Reynolds, sorry. So we did require an 8-foot along 5300 South because that's an arterial road. We,
Did we drop it to 6 foot on the?
6 foot on the north.
And what about his other project, Brad Reynolds' project on Winchester and,
That one was an 8-foot along the Winchester Street, but there are other projects. Again, I want to emphasize that we, rather than tit for tat back and forth with which projects we've required or not, and I do have a list of some that required 8 foot, and I'm happy to share that with you. Again, we're reviewing this on its own merit and the impacts in the surrounding area. But yes, we did require 8-foot solid wall on the Van Winkle apartments that were approved in 2019, up on 4700 South, 900 East, Murray Heights, 8-foot solid fence along the adjacent to the residential, and then Bullion Place. We only required a 6-foot solid. However, the reason it was only a 6-foot was because there was an over 100-foot setback from the adjacent residential neighborhood.
yeah. We're definitely moving residential units and a larger number of residential units. It looks about to be 3.5 to 4 units per home that already exists into this area. And I think that is, and I think there's significant encroachment on that setback that they have traditionally enjoyed back into the 70s. And so I think that does serve as a detriment to the neighborhood, and I think it is something that needs to be mitigated. Now, do I think that it has to be solid versus vinyl? I don't know that I have a real strong opinion there, but I do believe the height is something that needs to be considered seriously.
There is also the portion, a section of the code where we have the exception for properties that exceed 1/2 acre in size.
Can automatically have an 8-foot
Yeah.
fence. Yeah.
And I also didn't mention the Mercantile Towns, which is approved just this year, in April of this year. We proposed an 8-foot solid wall adjacent to the residential neighborhood. And the planning commission was actually favored that, and then the neighbors came and kind of back and forth, and they actually wanted the 6 foot. But we had proposed the 8 foot.
And it certainly is within our discretion to
Yes.
recommend an 8-foot
It
fence as a mitigating factor.
Can you remind it, Boyer project was residential to residential?
Yeah, that was the Mercantile Towns.
That's
That was
Mercantile
approved just
Towns.
April this year. And that zoning is very similar. It was RM15.
Yeah, they
adjacent
were
to
adding a
Holiday.
lot to a scene right up against, except they had a lot more buffer
They did.
between where those houses were
Yes.
already. Yeah, okay, thank you.
You were talking about existing conditions, the chain link fence. As we said, the since Applegate's been there and the residents to that side have existed, it's been that, agreed. However, what's been in the backyards of those residents was the Applegate Road and open space. So if that was staying the same, I would tend to agree with you, but we're changing the use there from the road open space to having additional residences on that side of the fence. So I think there is some good reason and perhaps some precedent, as we said, to have a higher fence there. And other than a chain link, and I agree with Commissioner Nay that whether it's 8-foot masonry or vinyl can be discussed more.
I understand, or I thank you for those comments, and just a couple additional thoughts. With the city is wholly within its discretion through the legislative process to require higher fences or masonry walls through the legislative process on multifamily developments, if it so desires. You could say multifamily homes, you have to surround those with higher fences, it has to be masonry. That's fully within the city's discretion. But here, where it's a residential, next to a residential, and the applicable standards require that it's either done compliant with the Murray City Code, which doesn't allow for 8-foot fence, except for perhaps on properties greater than a half acre, but in that instance, it's the applicant may construct it, not an applicant shall. It's not a required obligation. And if the city does want to proceed down that route to require a higher fence and make a distinction between a vinyl versus a masonry fence, it just needs to go through the proper process of specifically identifying on the record the detrimental impacts that are specific to this application, and then state why these narrowly tailored conditions mitigate those impacts according to applicable standards in the code. And it's important to understand that with city ordinances, because they are in Utah law, they've been described as a derogation of property rights of individuals, that they have to be narrowly tailored to, and any ambiguity or lack of specificity needs to be interpreted on behalf of the property owner and applicant. And so unless there are specific statutes that or ordinances that allow for a requirement of a greater fence and masonry, it's just not something that legally the city can require.
An appellate court can figure that out for you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and we understand that and the process, for sure. Next, the dog park requirement. So the main concern with the dog park is the water quality.
I'm not the utility, but yes, the water quality, it's from what I understand, it's the dog waste that would go into the city system.
Okay, and I have to excuse me, is there a connection from the detention pond into the city sewer, or is it just a detention pond where the water goes? And
It does retain the water for a certain amount, and our city engineer could probably answer more specificity on that question.
Yeah, we're just a little confused just because a specific reference to ordinances or applicable building codes wasn't cited for that specification. And so we would just like to see that to make sure we can comply.
Okay, I'm sure we could get that done, but I'm not the expert on that, but
Thank you.
From the utility department.
Thank you very much. Street naming, I think that we're fine with that condition. This is 1C in the subdivision. Have no problem complying with the county naming standards. The only thing that we had a little concern with is it specifically named two specific road names, that it had to be Fuji Way and Fuji Drive. And we think that we just haven't looked at the county naming standards close enough so that we can say, yes, for certain, it'll be this one of those two things, and that does comply with the county ordinance. So as long as the requirement is to comply with county ordinances, rather than saying that it has to be those two specific names, then we're fine to comply with that.
Which condition was that?
That was 1C in the subdivision. So maybe just strike the requirement for specific names. And then last is the dedication of property for that area, as you can see, those two triangles are currently occupied by, there's two neighboring residences. One that's the backyard and one is the front yard, and then the portion that is there on Spring Clover Drive. And the applicants are happy to dedicate and convey those properties to the surrounding neighbors and to make that all lined up, because it currently is a little bit of a problem right now because there's fences extending over that, and we'd like to clean that up. The only concern we have is with the existing fence kind of along Spring Clover Drive, we need to make sure that it comes out in order to allow the full right-of-way to connect up to Applegate Drive, which means both the roadway up as designed on the plan and the sidewalk. We want to make sure that there's a continuous sidewalk, because right now I think the sidewalk ends at the property line.
Yeah, I think that's right.
And so we just want to make sure it matches up. So we're happy to do that as long as we can make sure we have cooperation kind of with all the impacted parties there to match that
I'm sure the
up.
city engineer would be happy to make that connection. So it's
Perfect.
smooth transition.
Excellent. Those are kind of our only concerns with the requirements and conditions imposed, and so hopefully can be taken under consideration, and hopefully we can work together to make this happen.
Okay. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Great.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate you. Does anybody, before we have the city engineer come up, we'll have him come up in a second, does anybody else on staff have any comments they want to make before we have him come up? Okay. Can we have the city engineer come up and just state your name and your position with the city?
I am Chris Swislak on behalf of the city engineer. I'm the senior engineer at Murray City.
Thank you.
And I'm happy to address your concerns and comments. If I may, just real quickly, from the applicant's point of view, the storm drain does tie into the city storm drain system that dumps into the Jordan River. That is our concern. We are permitted by the state to ensure stormwater quality.
Okay.
Is there any questions?
Does anybody have any questions specifically?
Traffic study. Do you
Yes.
want to kind of give us your opinion and impression of the traffic study?
Yeah, so, the applicant did address, the concerns coming, to and from Murray Parkway / 700 West, by adding the gate there on the east side. It is the opinion of the city engineer and of this traffic engineer myself. Just so you understand, I am also on the traffic safety committee and, am studied in traffic engineering. We're jack of all trades, but my emphasis is traffic engineering. The city engineer feels that we are okay with the gate on the east side, but would request an additional emergency-only access gate on the west side as it ties to, what's the name of the road, sorry, Spring Clover, excuse me. We do appreciate the access and working to get pedestrian access. Connectivity in that way is great. We do feel that, as Commissioner Ney had stated, that there is additional traffic that happens with the school that we are concerned about. There are about 340 homes that generate over 3,000 trips in the neighborhoods that surround this proposed development and the existing Applegate. Give or take, it splits, if you're to assume 50-50. We did a recent speed study on Murray Parkway, which is Riverside, also called as Riverside Drive. To the west, that is a neighborhood collector from Halcyon, Sunbury, et cetera. We received about 1,550 vehicles, and that was outside of the school hours, but that's the average daily traffic. So obviously there might be more during school year. It is on the other side. Likewise, on the other side, if you're to assume over 3,000 daily trips, you'd probably say about 1,600 coming down. Pardon me, I always get the name wrong, Germania, thank you. So those two streets are the ones that we have repetitive complaints about speeding, about too much traffic, and we really have a lot of congestion issues that particularly off Germania from the school. We feel that though, even if the conservative 5 to 10% would be coming from the subdivision, we are still tying what is essentially from Applegate, a neighborhood collector into a local street being Spring Clover. So streets such as Germania and Riverside Drive, those are collector roads. I don't think I'd see much of objection if we're tying a neighborhood collector into a neighborhood collector, where we're going from a neighborhood collector from this whole subdivision of over 100 homes into a smaller local road. That is the concern, and that is why we feel that an emergency gate would be best. It provides the secondary access that is required and, minimizes the impacts to the adjacent neighborhoods. Albeit it could be 60 to 120 vehicles a day per the traffic study presented in the most recent memo. There's a recent ongoing study in traffic management. Basically, traffic flows like water. It follows a path of least resistance. And it also fills whatever void you have. So if you were to restrict both sides on the east side of a gate and people can't, via visitors, deliveries, et cetera, there's more likelihood that they would use the west access rather than that. And by restricting that, we feel we can protect the neighborhood from additional traffic and further complaints.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions? I appreciate you. Have anything else you'd like to mention?
And thank you for addressing
Thank
the
you.
comments.
Okay. If anybody wants to discuss anything before I open the public comment period, that'll be the time, or otherwise I'll do that.
Are we taking both sets of public comment, or are we gonna do two separate public comments?
I do have to read in the record. I'm going to allow one time.
Yeah, I think we're gonna do both.
Okay.
I guess maybe I have a question. I don't know if this is the time to ask it, but it seems to me that if they just put the gate on Spring Clover, it protects the neighborhood, and then they would be choosing to put the gate on Applegate Drive. Is that how other people are understanding it?
Yes.
Yes?
Yeah,
Okay,
that's what I
okay, just, I mean, maybe that's like a silly question, but I guess that, yeah, okay.
And, there's been studies that have shown that gated communities aren't really safer communities. It does limit vehicular access, but it doesn't reduce crime. It doesn't,
Right, if the, like the traffic engineer said, if the goal is to protect the neighborhood, then we just need, then
The
the
western
gate that does that on the west end does that.
Yes.
And it doesn't necessarily help at all to have the gate on.
yes.
Okay, thank you. Just to make sure I understand.
Okay. Susan, are you gonna wanna read your comments first in the public comment
Well,
period?
whatever you prefer. I can.
I don't think I care, so.
Um,
I'll go ahead, I'll go ahead and open it, then I'll let you read the comments, and then we'll invite everybody else up. How about that? Okay, so we're gonna open up the public comment period. Again, if you'd like to make a comment, you're gonna come up to the podium and state your name and address. We're gonna let Susan read some public comments that we received.
Did you want to have the Applegate HOA president come up?
Well, would they just be making a public comment,
I
or
think so.
they're not part of the application?
Yep. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes. If you're watching remotely, again, the email is planningcommission@murray.utah.gov, and that is the only way you can make a public comment if you're watching remotely. And just so everybody's aware, when you come up to the podium and you state your comment, we are not going to address that immediately while you're up there until we close the public comment period, and then we may address it. So let's start with Susan, and as soon as she's done, the public is welcome to come up. And please, if you don't have a piece of paper that on the back table, please grab one and fill out that information, and you can just drop it off right up here after you're done with your comment. Susan.
Okay. The three that I received today, if they're in the audience, we're going to read your comments, then for our policy, you're not allowed to make comments again. So if there's anybody here that's emailed it in, let me know. You choose one way or the other. Okay, so the first one we received from Vicki Bateman. I am contacting you concerning the rentals that are proposed to go on Applegate property. I have lived here for 19 years and bought my condo here. Oh, oh, Thank you. Okay, this is from Vicki Bateman, and I received this this morning. I am contacting you concerning the rentals that are proposed to go on Applegate property. I have lived here for 19 years and bought my condo here because it is a nice location, and this is the condo. And this is condos and homeowners, not rentals. I never thought I would have to worry about a bunch of rentals. A bunch of rentals would be built here. This is supposed to be a condo complex, not an apartment complex. This is happening because of the Realtor Quinn and Mark Core HOA, and my opinion is that they are all about this money and don't care about any of the homeowners. This was completely hush-hush until Murray sent the letter of notice. The board nor the HOA never let us know anything until we received the letter from Murray. We were supposed to have a meeting on May 3rd, and it was canceled. I got suspicious then, and something was going on. This is the reason I don't trust the HOA. All they want is to get their money and could care less about what we want. I am sick and tired of the HOA doing as they please without considering the homeowners. I just want to know how we can get help with someone who protects homeowners and cares about the homeowners. This is my home and I pay for it, and the last thing I want is for rentals to come into the complex. My opinion is that we are being taken advantage of by the crooked people. Thank you for your time and consideration. The next one is from Dave and Kathy Chappell. To the Murray City Planning Commission, my wife and I have major concerns regarding the realignment of Applegate Drive connecting to Spring Clover Drive. In the spring of 1979, my wife and I bought Lot 57, which is located at 868 West Spring Clover Drive, of the Clovercrest No. 3 subdivision. We were looking for a location centrally located in the valley and found Murray to be an excellent community to build a home and raise a family. The subdivision was scheduled with only a few access roads in and out, making it a perfect location to start a family. Spring Clover Drive was and still is what we would call a side street within the subdivision, keeping traffic to a minimum. The Applegate condominiums were built in 1973, 6 years prior to our purchase of our lot. The developers and owners of Applegate condominiums should have thought of the connection to Spring Clover Drive back when the street and Clovercrest No. 3 subdivision was in the planning stages, long before now and before our home and dozens of other homes have been built. That connection would have made a difference in our decision to buy the lot and build our home. We have no problem in the connection to Spring Clover Drive is gated. We have no problem if the connection to Spring Clover Drive is gated and is for the purpose of providing ingress and egress to our local fire and safety personnel. That makes sense and should have been done a long time ago. If the Planning Commission decides to approve the connection to Spring Clover Drive, we ask that they do so with a stipulation that the connection be gated with an automated gate system, and only that the residents of Applegate, as well as our fire and safety personnel, can enter or exit from. We see the traffic on 700 West regularly backing up during the afternoon, and we're concerned that the backed up traffic would soon begin to use Spring Clover Drive as a shortcut out of 5400 South. If the road, Spring Clover Drive through Applegate, does take place and the city takes ownership of it, the new road should be built and paid for by Applegate condominium developers according to Murray City regulations and standards with curb and gutter, etc. We are asking you thoughtfully to consider these suggestions as if this was your neighborhood, one where you have lived for 43 plus years. If the approval is granted for the connection, we would like the commission to then consider the addition of speed bumps at regular intervals throughout this subdivision, like we have seen in many other subdivisions within the valley. For as long as the neighborhood has been here, Spring Clover Drive has been a quiet street where neighbors can stand in the street and converse with one another without the fear of being harmed. Thank you for your consideration. And then lastly is from Gary Polson. Opposition to making Spring Clover Drive a road going through Applegate. I am opposed to making Spring Clover Drive a road going through Applegate. It would create safety issues worse. It would create safety issues worse. Applegate is a private community that the residents bought to enjoy their peace and quiet. Having one way in and out helps keep the balance of the community. The proposed site has a way in and out, making it peace and quiet for them. I hope that you will see that it will cost the city a lot of tax dollars. We that live and bought homes here we that live here bought our homes here for that purpose.
Okay, thank you, Susan. So if you're present and would like to make a public comment, please come up to the podium.
My name is Marianne Parker. My address is 835 Lucky Clover Circle. My property adjoins the Applegate condominium. And sir, there are 10 feet concrete walls from Applegate currently in place from Applegate's storage parking lot that they want to incorporate into the Fiji townhomes along our backyard. And it's 10 feet high down to 8 feet, currently in place. And it has been since before I moved into the subdivision. So they're not all just chain link or vinyl or whatever. And throughout the subdivision, the people that are faced by that triangle are adamantly against having the street come through. I am adamantly against. I have signatures of over 100 people in that subdivision that are adamantly against having that street come through. If you've ever tried to get out of the subdivision at the time school lets out or at rush hour and get off 53rd, both of those times, not just school times, in the mornings and when school lets out, but also at rush hour, it is terrible to try to get through 5300 South because of the number of cars that go through there. If you do put a gated back there, we'd appreciate it being only controlled by Murray City, because otherwise, with the fence that is there in their property, we have called them several times through the years because of vandals cutting holes and going into the storage areas. We have seen things happen. Additional people that have residence along Applegate have complained, as I've been trying to collect signatures, and saying that their maintenance crews are doing things that are not very appropriate next to the chain link fences that they have in their backyards. And safety concerns, in fact, I've told some of them they need to approach Murray City because of some of the things that are happening there. But we are totally against that. And Applegate, okay, I love the people in Applegate. Every one of them I know are stalwart citizens. I am probably one of the people that, I have a dual purpose. I have property that adjoins Applegate. I love my home on Lucky Clover. I do own a unit in Applegate that is a rental unit. I have a stellar tenant. He's been there for over close to 10 to 15 years. And he's well respected within that community. But when I've gone to Applegate meetings, some of the concerns that have been raised in the past, when I brought them up, I was told, oh, don't worry about it. That's none of your concern because the new R&R will have to pay for it. But we've already agreed on a tentative sales price, but they'll have to take care of those things. And Murray City can't hold us to all of the things that they've asked us to comply with on a tentative basis. And so I have extreme concerns and ask the board to really consider not approving this because of the interactions, so number one, I've had with Applegate, and number two, the way that it's going to affect my home and where it sits, because it will be right there in my backyard. And so I appreciate your time, and I do appreciate all of your time because of the many hours that I know each one of you commit to the city on our behalf, our citizens' behalf. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Carolyn Burke, and I am a homeowner in Applegate. I don't actually live there now. My family is living in the unit, but it is family-owned. I live in Taylorsville. A couple things. I am under the impression that this project was already approved and the medium density issue was already resolved. And I'm under the assumption that we're mostly talking about the wall and the second entrance to the community or out of it. I don't see any reason why Applegate can't put up a masonry wall to separate the properties. I think that would be a common courtesy. That said, I also think that these decisions with respect to building communities in Applegate, whether it's a leased or a unit for sale, is Applegate's decision if we meet the city codes. I don't think the neighborhood really has a right to tell us what to do if we are doing it properly. That's my opinion. It's a strong opinion. With respect to the exit out or in of Applegate, I really don't think it's fair to have an opening there and say only Applegate residents can use it. I think if you're going to open it, everyone could use it, and I think the traffic would flow, in my opinion, more to the east than it would the west, specifically with regards to school. When I was living there and my grandchildren were living with me, the Applegate kids walked to Horizon. There's a shortcut out of Applegate right onto Glendon. So I don't think that's going to be a huge issue with people driving their kids out of the neighborhood, down Spring Clover, over to Germania, and then on Glendon. I don't think that's going to be it, but I don't think we should say, okay, we want an emergency entrance here and then an entrance where only we can use it. That said, I don't think that's fair at all. I think if we're going to have an opening there, both sides can use it, and I do believe it would be used quite a bit going east. That's an argument for another day. I don't care one way or another. But I do believe the Applegate residents, with as many units are going to be there, need another way in and out. And I don't think it has to be through a neighborhood. We need to do something for another artery because we just can't have all of this coming out of one exit. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's David Schneider. I live at 793 West Clover Meadow Drive. I'd like to address specifically the traffic on the east part of Spring Clover Drive and the south legs of Clover Meadow Drive and Lucky Clover Lane, which is the streets that would be used to get to Halcyon, which is a medium-level collector. Spring Clover, Lucky Clover, and Clover Meadow are not collectors. They're subdivision streets. By my count, there are currently 134 homes along those streets. And if you approve, there already are 172 units in Applegate. Ms. Nixon told me on the phone. And if we add 42, that's 214. So we're going from traffic for 134 housing units to 348 if access is allowed from the conditional use and the Applegate area onto Spring Clover. So I commend the recommendation of the city planning staff that it be emergency and city access only at the west end of this development. These subdivision streets were built for these 100 and something homes, and they shouldn't be tasked with double or close to triple the amount. I confess I don't have a degree in traffic engineering, but just by common sense, I find it hard to believe a traffic study that says out of 214 units during peak traffic time, it would add 4 to 7 vehicles. That just doesn't seem like good math. And I would hope that you would see that just on the face of it, as opposed to accepting a traffic engineer that says out of 214 units during peak time, there would be 4 to 7 additional vehicles. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Lance Monson, lifelong Murray resident, probably longer than most of you guys are old, for sure. including even these gray-haired guys. I'm probably still older than you guys, but anyway, you know, no offense to all these beautiful people, the lawyer types and all that sort of thing. I've lived in that home almost 40 years. I'm on Majestic Village Circle. So your project is gonna get a nice total eclipse of my backyard area. It's just that simple, based on any drawing, whether it's small or otherwise. Obviously, I don't want that. I've been against this thing from day one, still am. I understand the progress, but I look at Murray City now. Do we need another project? How many different projects do you guys have to have? All essentially kind of the same thing, multi or high-density housing, all these different places. Do we need a little 42-unit place in what is one of the few little opening places that Murray still has left, really? So, yeah, I don't particularly like that idea. But there are some things, there is, when you talk to your people, in the backyard, all the way along that whole fence line back there, there's like a big 2-inch water main. Whatever you guys do, don't screw that up because we'll all be flooded out. So, or if you could move that somehow, so it won't be an issue for people like myself and other people that are in there, please, because that thing is broken before and it's not fun, okay? So, yeah, I'm not exactly favor of it. I do like some of the concern, you guys have at least addressed the concerns that there are people on that other side and we sit down lower. So a big tall building is going to seem even higher, you know, that sort of thing. And I appreciate that. And at least the compromise on the road going through there with the gate being locked for so that seems to be kind of at least a decent compromise on that sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, and then the idea that these are rental units, that doesn't exactly sit well. I mean, that may not be politically correct to say, and I know you guys can't differentiate between their rental unit or for purchase or something like that, but that doesn't bode well with me either. So anyway, thank you for your time, and I'll still continue to be a Murray resident because I don't really want to move. So, but
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would you fill out a form, sir?
I have one. I'll give.
Okay.
Dunn, 5320 Majestic Village Circle. This whole project is full of emotional baggage on both sides. For me, the biggest emotion at this point is discouragement and disillusionment. I finally feel hopeful. The fact that you want to put a gate there and stop those cars so it's an emergency thing, that is wonderful. I feel like we've been listened to. The fact that you want to put the high masonry wall, I feel wonderful. I feel like we were listened to. Because 5 years ago when this all started and we first came, the first thing they tried to tell us was they needed to change zoning because if one of the Applegate condominiums burned, they could not rebuild it because it didn't fit the zoning. Somebody in the know that knows more than me finally got that person who made that statement to admit that was false. And then it's gone on from there. They've changed variance lines on the setbacks. They've changed the variance to get cell towers moved from here to there. My question is,
Sorry, new building and we don't know what
my
we're doing.
question is, you know, I don't understand why we have regulations when all the builders seem to have to do is ask for a variance. You know, can I get a variance to put a tiny home in my backyard? No. And so I think sometimes builders need to be held accountable. The fact that a masonry wall is more expensive than a vinyl fence, I'm sure they don't want to do that. But my neighbors on Majestic Village Circle across from me, I'm all the way back in, boy, you are really going to impact them if you don't let that wall remain. That's huge. I can't thank you enough for saying that needs to happen and that the gate goes on there. Because when I talk to people in the neighborhood and even in the city, a lot of people have just expressed concern that they don't have any faith in our planning commission here in Murray at all. Because everywhere we look, there's high density housing going up. I just ask you to hold tight to those two things you said, the masonry fence, the gate, because I don't want to be disillusioned and disappointed again.
Thank you.
Oh, and one more thing. When you guys talk to each other and your microphone's here and you turn your head and talk to each other, we lose everything you say. And we're old. So you're not in front of it.
Yeah, we're older than we look. That's bad enough. My name's Deborah Rossi, and I live at 877 West Spring Clover Drive. And I'm just a couple of houses from where you're talking about connecting, and I want to talk about the traffic. But before I do that, I want to tell you something. When I moved to Murray 35 years ago, I'm from the DC area, okay? And I come from a little town that's buried in, has nothing public in it except an elementary school and 3 churches because our town decided that we were not having anything else. And so I'm kind of used to the people being listened to. We actually made the metro leave our town, okay? So it's not in our town. And I came from a town that was right there in the dead center, 3 miles out of DC, okay? When I moved to Murray, and I'd started taking my kids to swimming lessons, I could not believe that everybody knew each other. And I couldn't believe how friendly and warm, and I thought, wow, I have landed in a small city in the middle of a metropolitan area, and it feels so good. And I feel like we're losing a lot of that. With all of the stuff we're bringing in, I think the charm, the things that Murray has going for it, we're selling it, literally selling it to the highest bidder. And it breaks my heart because I think that's something special Murray has. So where I live, even though it's not technically a collector, everybody comes into Halcyon. They come down Clover Meadow, they come across Spring Clover, and then they go down Lucky Clover. Now, I'm a numbers hound, and I've actually measured it, and it's shorter to go straight down Clover Meadow. So I go straight down Clover Meadow because I save close to 1/10 of a mile, which adds up over the year. And so, I know, I'm weird. Anyway, but I watch those people. They come, and they bring all their kids, and they come right in front of my house, and they're late to school, and they're hightailing it. And I've had my own kids almost get hit out there when my kids were little. I mean, literally this close. And when I back out, the neighbors currently, one of them is parking a truck there, and with the fence and the truck, you can hardly see the cars come around the corner. I don't want more traffic on that road. If they do ever open it up, please put a speed bump in front of my house and in front of my neighbor's house and a whole bunch of them along there to slow people down. Because at night, when everybody else is sleeping, I'm a night owl, and I hear the motorcycles ripping through this week at 2:30 in the morning, okay? And I hear the trucks going through, and I hear people even then. But the way this little neighborhood's designed, unless you know your way around it, you can't get around it. You can get yourself in the loop and get lost. And I think that's one of the charms of it, which reminds me of the neighborhood I grew up in. Even though we had 2,000 people, you couldn't get from one side of the neighborhood to the other unless you were a resident because nobody could follow the road patterns, okay? I think that's wonderful. Just really quickly, I think that we were told, we all came out and protested originally when they went to R15, and we were told there was no option, that we'd have time to speak about things later and it wouldn't come to just a final thing till we had a chance to speak. And here we are at a final thing. So we weren't told accurately because I think it's been pushed through quietly. The last time that there was supposed to be a meeting, a bunch of us got empty envelopes. I don't know if all of you knew that or not. We got empty envelopes, and so I called the city and said, I got an empty envelope, what is it? Oh, it was supposed to have been a thing for a meeting. And I talked to probably 8 or 10 people, and I would say probably 75% of them also got empty envelopes. So we've not been aware of what's going on, and it's really been frustrating for the neighborhood. I understand that a lot of my friends have moved out of Applegate because they knew this was coming. They've sold and they've moved. We've already lost a lot of really wonderful people. Other wonderful people move in, and I understand that. But I don't think that it's fair to change the ground that people buy with and that they expect. And I think that they need to be listened to. So, and with that, I just appreciate that you guys are all listening to us. And, you know, I don't want him to open that up. When he says that they did a traffic thing, I leaned over and I said, the only traffic counter I saw was on Halcyon. I didn't see on the individual streets. I didn't see one on Lucky Clover, I didn't see one on Clover Meadow, and I didn't see one on Spring Clover. And so It was only done on the count on Halcyon and the count over there. So it was not done well, in my opinion. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ronald Dunn. I live at 53 Majestic Village Circle. One, I wish I could have had all of this information on your website somewhere. I couldn't find it when I looked. It would have been helpful to review the documents that you put together earlier. This sad affair has been going on for 5 years. I kept the initial notice dated 28th of August 2018, talking about a public hearing on this very topic. And I must say we've run a few laps on this, as well as seen the direction change depending on which developer is currently putting his hands into the pot. So over the past 5 years, I've had a discussion with residents from Applegate, and they say, yeah, we've been suffering through 3 embezzlement scandals. Consequently, we haven't had the money to repair and update our somewhat neglected complex. This is seen as a way to generate revenue to update and repair their sadly needed repairs in their complex. So the advantage of selling this land now, and the same with these other projects, when they had more units for sale than this, is to generate revenue, which means the owners, especially the absentee ones, won't be required to fund these necessary improvements. Now, the number of proposed units has shrunk in this latest version because the cell phone tower owner, who pays sizable fees to Applegate for an unsightly tower, refused to allow it to be moved. The partially disassembled tower looks hideous as it towers over nearby homes, including mine. The Planning Commission at the time, this was years ago, approved this unfortunate cell phone tower as Applegate pleaded poverty and over the objections of neighboring homeowners, such as me. Homeowners adjoining Applegate have once again been overlooked for the most part, as this latest iteration wants to build apartments rather than owner-occupied townhomes. And yes, I have problems with apartments when I look at the sad fire play example. In addition, the second proposed exit in the new scheme will no longer utilize Murray Boulevard, as was proposed in earlier proposals with Applegate. But now we'll no longer use Murray Boulevard. We want to open onto Spring Clover Drive, which is in the heart of my neighborhood. Hopefully we won't have this additional traffic if it occurs, because we'll have a gate only available to emergency vehicles from Murray. Now, some of my neighbors have lived in their homes since 1978. I have lived here in mine since 1986. As homeowners, we cannot subsidize a poorly managed complex through their projects that lower our property values. The cell phone tower was bad enough. This latest episode has become a win-loss saga in which the homeowners will lose home values and livability if Applegate is allowed to win by selling part of its land for just under $2 million. The request for the latest exit utilizing Spring Clover Drive should be discussed and researched and restricted, if not denied. Applegate should assess its units as needed to finance the long-delayed improvements. The absentee landlords will complain bitterly, as always, but the neighboring homeowners and their home equity cannot be viewed as inconsequential collateral damage. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Reagan Holmes. I've only lived at 864 Clover Meadow Circle since 2019, so I'm definitely a newbie when it comes to Murray, even though it's been 7 years. I'm curious about the traffic study that is hired by the developer. I'm not sure the process of that, but that's just one question I have. I'm curious if we can delay parts of this until the residential, from residential to residential, if it's a 6-foot, if we could delay that until we can kind of get that worked out, because it seems to me that there should be a differentiation between high density and low density when it comes to a barrier. So maybe that needs to change to be a higher barrier if it's a situation where it's high density to low density. And then I think also the school issues for traffic is a valid concern, especially when we consider that Horizon, although it is a neighborhood elementary school, it's actually more of a commuter school because of the dual immersion and because Murray District pulls in from surrounding areas. So I do think that that is a valid, concern. And then the last thing is about the trees. When a developer proposes a plan, I saw lots of trees. Does that actually happen? Is there anybody that follows up on that? So those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
My name is Bruce Craig. I live at 5365 Baldwin Park in Applegate Condominiums. From the get-go, ever since CORE, the property management company, took over, they've controlled who's gotten on the board and who they want to do on this project. It's been a money thing ever since they've got in there. We have, I told them way back when, why don't we do like a $300 assessment every year to upgrade and do stuff? Well, for 7 years, they didn't do nothing till 2 years ago. So they finally did an $800 assessment 2 years ago. Last year, a $500 assessment. And then took away the cable TV amenity, which is like $50 a month, never replaced it with anything. And then January 1st, raised the fees 20%. In the 7 years that they've been in control, every time you call them for an improvement or you want something done, they say, well, let's wait till these R&Rs are done. We can't do anything till we get the money. Well, like the one gentleman said, just under $2 million, that was what, 5, 6, 7 years ago. Okay, property values have increased almost twice or double-fold, whatever. And anyway, none of us know what Applegate LLC is, whether that controls Applegate HOA or Applegate HOA controls Applegate LLC. Another thing is, that's been told already, is every time there's something comes up about this, which we thought was dead in the water, we either get an empty envelope or there's no meeting and then we're surprised with an envelope. So we don't know what's negotiated, who's paying for what, or if we want any improvements. This is being forced on us. So we can't have anything improved or even our water turned on till this goes through. So I believe that the fees have been raised so they can take the cell tower company and pay the $500,000 to move it out of Applegate's money, and then sell the land where they're going to reap $80 or $90 million from this and give us a drop in the bucket, one time $5,000 or $10,000 per unit money. Overall, the added congestion, the noise, and we've already got beggars on the street, whether you add another inlet or not, which you say you have to, which is fine, but the traffic, the parking, and taking away the breathing space, we're already clogged. We've already got, everything around us is already full. Are we gonna have any space to enjoy what we bought? I've been there 33 years. They're taking away the whole reason I bought there. My next thing is it's the money. It's the money. It's all about the money. You guys make property tax, they reap millions. We get less space. We're probably one of the last condos left that has a piece of property that comes with our condominium. I don't know any condominiums that are built nowadays that own a piece of the land. So that's gonna depreciate, that's gonna take away from us. We'll be left with having to go through the water, power, sewage, all that interruption for somebody that's moving in, gonna use our amenities, which we've paid for, and we're left nothing. We're left holding the bucket. So I don't think it's a good idea. I think it's wrong. I think if it was your neighborhood, you wouldn't want it either. And my last is, I'd like to know who's in charge, because this LLC, I don't know anything about. I don't know who controls what. We've never had a meeting or been told who's paying for what, who's getting what. You should demand that they provide us at least 2 or 3 meetings, or postpone this for a year, so they can tell us, okay, this is who's paying for the property, this is how much money you're getting, this is how much Applegate will receive, who's paying for the roadway, the moving of all the utilities and so on and so forth. Because we know nothing. Not one of us know anything. It's 4 or 5 people controlling our livelihood. And we're left, until they can go through this, we can't have anything done. No improvements, period. And for 7 years, they could have been improving everything, one thing at a time through the years, and they haven't done nothing. So, anyway, that's my thoughts. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Abby Woods. I just moved in last October to 5315 South Bend Davis Park. I just wanted to express my thoughts for this. I think it's pretty apparent there's a lot of confusion about what's been going on because it's lasted, as I understand, 6 years. We've been trying to figure this out. And I just kind of also wanted to address the thoughts that it is for money, and I think that is an okay and good thing. I think we do need the money. Yeah, I've been saving for a long time to finally, this is my first real estate purchase, and I'm really proud of that. But it's difficult to look around and see there's a lot of like porches that are disintegrating and are unsafe. The HOA community like pool is fine, but the gym is gross and disgusting and no one wants to use it. There's vandalism, the mirrors taken out, stuff like that. It's pretty embarrassing to have worked this far, and it's great to see Utah, you know, like be thriving, but it's kind of hard to be a first-time homeowner and feel a little embarrassed about some of the aspects of my property. So I'm really in favor of this. I sympathize with the people that may have, you know, like the new townhomes encroach a little bit on their property, but this is the most spread out development I was able to find. That's something that was important to me because I have dogs, and so there's tons of grass, lots of open air. Even looking at this map, all the homes look really squished together and compared to all this land that Applegate has. So I really don't see that too much as an issue, but it's also easy for me to say because I'm not one of those people. But I also think the other traffic concerns are not an issue with the gate on the west side. I feel really comfortable about that, given that it's just going to be blocked. I feel comforted with that. And anyways, I just wanted to maybe, as a really new homeowner, kind of put that opinion out there that I'm really in favor of this and being able to kind of move on and start improving the community and be proud of it.
Thank you.
My name is Alexandra Hyam, and I live at 5264 South Rome Beauty Park. I have been a resident and owner in Applegate for 6 years and am the current secretary of the HOA board. I have been around since the beginning of this project, and to this day I still support it. This project will bring in money for Applegate to do much needed maintenance around the property. While I am sad we will be losing some green space, I believe the pros greatly outweigh the cons of this project. I believe it is the best financial decision for Applegate to limit the financial impact multiple assessments will have on our members and speed up our ability to do large projects due to the influx of money. I, as a resident and a board member, am excited to see this project take Applegate back to its former glory.
Thank you.
Joshua Hawes, 5184 Gravenstein in the condo complex. So my first concern is parking. With this current situation, you're taking out all visitor parking, especially for Gravenstein, which is like half the units. There's 4 visitor parking spots in there, and now you're gonna take out everything from around, excuse me, from around the clubhouse and the current tennis courts. So now you're creating a safety concern because people are gonna park in the red zone. You're not gonna have your emergency access. So that's a huge concern. We had a resident that had to have a ambulance and a fire truck come in, and they had a hard time getting there. So now you're already creating a bigger concern there, a bigger problem. The traffic from 53 left onto Murray Parkway, I don't know if any of you have tried making that left-hand turn. I about get T-boned every day. Now you're gonna add another 42 units that possibly could be using that. You're gonna create a death trap on that road. Just the safety concerns are immense. How are we gonna get friends, family, packages if you're gonna put a gate up, just the flow in there, everyone that bought with the intent of having a quiet neighborhood, now we're throwing 42 more units that wasn't planned. There's been zero transparency of where this money will be used, what it'll be used for. So you're getting a one-time benefit that through time will disintegrate. Through time, that benefit will no longer be there. Things, there's a useful life with everything. And then we are not reaping any benefits beyond, 5, 10 years? So there's a major concern that way too. Or are we getting anything past that initial benefit? No. Where's the money being used? Zero transparency on that. I think you can see everyone's concern that we feel like we're being railroaded and pushed into this without really any plan. What's the plan? What are we using the money for? What's it going to? There's been nothing. This vote that supposedly happened within the community, love to know when that happened. Love to see the outcome of what that vote was, because I don't remember it. I don't know anyone else. So, a lot of concerns on transparency, on how this progressed through the years. If it was your guys' home, I hope you guys can see the major concerns. I understand some people see, there's issues there, but this is a one-time fix and those issues will come back. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Natasha Kelsey, and I live in Gravenstein as well. The main reason I bought was the peaceful quiet and the green. However, upon walking, because I have a dog and she's crazy, so I walk often, I see things falling apart. There have been measures to try to change that, such as dropping some of the amenities to help with the cost. They've raised dues. We've had multiple where we've paid lump sums each year. They have tried to avoid this if they could, and I feel like this is what's left. I feel like when I've heard them talk, because I've made almost every meeting, when I ask about it, they are clear what they were gonna do with it. They've talked about doing decks, foundations, they've talked about doing roofs. They were pretty transparent in telling us how many they did that year. So I think it's hard because I think in the past, there's been some problems with people going to like HOA meetings and not getting answers, but I feel like the recent people are giving answers. And so I think people just need to go to the meetings to get the answers that they're seeking for, because they have been talking about it since I moved in 3 years ago. I know that in walking and talking to some of the residents, I feel like the only other option would be to do a huge assessment. And a lot of our population is elderly and on a fixed income, and there is no way that they can pay 20 grand for an assessment, and that is our next option, I feel like. So I feel like what's been implemented is a happy compromise and is really ensuring the safety of others, because there's a lot of safety things that need to fix, and I'm for it.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Cecilia Columbell, and I've lived at Applegate for 13 years now. I live at 5203 Gravenstein Park, and even though we've had different assessments in that, we've always had a problem with the money to keep up with our units and everything. And assessments have been, given to people that couldn't really afford them, and some people actually had to sell. So I think that this is a necessary move that we need to make, to have the monies to properly upkeep our units and our land, just even the grounds and everything around it, the pool. I think that the access to Spring Clover there, I think that's really wise to put in just an emergency gate. That really makes sense, so that they don't get all that traffic flow. Also, I do have some concerns about the parking. I live on Upper Gravenstein, and we don't have even one visitor parking spot, none. So when, physical therapy comes, or home health comes, or they come to give you oxygen, they can't park anyplace without being towed. So I know these are things that can be worked on, though. I don't think that's going to be a problem. Let's see. Oh, I did have one concern, and again, this can be worked out. When they have the gate with a fob or some sort of system for security at the front, how we're going to do that with visitors, and also, will it slow down the flow of traffic coming in and out? That's the only concern. But I think that's all I have.
Thank you.
I am Michelle Jarman. I live at 5345 Baldwin Park in the Applegate community. I have been a resident and an owner there for about 2 years now. I am a newer member to the Applegate HOA, and just recently this year become the Applegate HOA board president. I was aware of the proposal and what the situation was with it when I bought my condo in 2021. I was very well aware that the vote had been passed and approved by the community in 2017, which then led to the 2018 agreement and all of that was discussed here earlier today. I am very well aware of the age of the condos. I saw what happened when I had to gut mine out to move in, and I see daily what's happening on the outside. And as an owner, I am frustrated, as much as any of the other owners here are, that things aren't getting done as quick as we would like to. But unfortunately, that's not how this works when things have been embezzled in the past and you're trying to make a recovery. I bought my condo there for the green space, and I am very saddened at the loss of it as a board member and as a resident. But it is a needed thing in the community. The community can't make the changes they need to avoid the vandalism, to have a place we want to call home. I know most of the residents there are proud to be renters or homeowners or whatever aspect they are. And those that do try their best. They make an effort to do small things every day. And I'm standing here in favor of the project, even with all the saddens and the sorrows that come with it. And I'm excited to see what resolutions this could bring and how we could go from there. May not be the prime situation that we all want, but it gets the goal to what we need to do to bring codes up for safety in the community, in our individual units, and the surrounding neighborhood.
Thank you. Any additional comments?
Name is Chester Kelsey. I live in Gravenstein as well. Lived here for about 2 years. Been on the HOA board since the first of the year. All of this project has been going on for quite a long time. I personally don't think that this is just a project for money. This is a project to help out the rest of the community, so we can have safety, not just for us, but for our fellow residents that are next to us, because we've had a lot of break-ins, we've had hoodlums, and this would ultimately help that, and it would also help the HOA as well. The other thing is the collector up on the left, I do think would be emergency use only. And I think that's a wonderful idea. And I do approve of this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Got any emails?
Yes, we did get one.
That's great.
Okay, we did receive an email from Paul Pickett. He states, "My name is Paul Pickett and I live at 5304 Wildflower Lane, Murray, Utah. This is the neighborhood adjacent to the Applegate condos. I oppose this development on the grounds that we have crowded roads already. This condo will create a nightmare scenario. The west gate labeled an emergency gate worries me. That could easily be turned into a regular egress when Murray Boulevard becomes overcrowded. This is not a prudent project. Please vote against it, Paul Pickett." And that's all we've received.
Thank you. Any other comments before we close the public comment section? Okay. Seeing none, I'm going to close the public comment period. I think I'm just going to address a few things, and then maybe I'll have Susan address a few things. We heard a lot of people talk about the HOA and how it's being managed and how it's organized, and obviously that's outside our purview here. We are considering an application, and that's what we're doing here. But I would recommend you speak with your HOA board and see what you can do on those grounds. But I understand your frustration there. Someone mentioned that it would have been nice to have the information that was presented in this presentation early. I know it's probably not very well known, but all of these packets are posted publicly on the Murray City website. If you Google Murray City Planning Commission, it's like the first link on Google, and there's on the left it has the agendas and the packet, which is all these maps and everything. So just
Chair Pearson?
Yes, please.
That is 99% of the time.
Sure, that
However,
is true.
we did have, we have implemented a new agenda software, and the agenda got posted, but we were working as late as Wednesday at 4 p.m. to try to get the packet posted, and the file was just too large. And so we did try, but we couldn't get that posted. So that one unfortunately was not
Actually,
posted.
it was on the website. There's two places that we post the agendas. One is on the city's calendar, which is the one Zach is referring to, and that was a software program that wasn't working due to the size of this packet. However, it was on the Planning Commission under Community Development website page.
It was because that's how I read it. So
Yeah.
it was there.
Yes,
I
that
think
was
it's important to know we're not required to post that, but we do for convenience for everybody.
It
So,
was also on the state's website, so.
yeah, so we try to communicate as much as possible.
And we get the packet at the same time the public gets the packet, essentially.
Usually, yes, yeah. Do you want to address some of that stuff, Susan? Do you have things you could address?
Sure. The ones that
I've got some things if you don't have anything that you want to.
maybe we're gonna.
I thought we could talk about trees. Someone mentioned how do we make sure the trees are planted? We could talk about parking requirements and that make sure they're all met. Someone mentioned the gate, and we don't know how the gate's gonna work. And we're not requiring a gate on the east side, is that correct?
Correct, that we
Yeah.
are not requiring, that's.
So the gate on the east side is up to the HOA, whether they're putting that in or not. We don't know how it's gonna work, and we're not requiring that at all. But could you talk about the trees and how we make sure that that's all done when the development's done?
Sure. The RM15 zone, we do not have a minimum or landscaping requirement or have to have so many trees. If it was a PUD, that would be different, but it is not. So the RM15, they just have to have landscaping. You can't require a certain amount of trees or whatever. However, there are some very nice trees, as you saw on the street maps. It would be wonderful to maintain those or retain them, but unfortunately, probably a lot of those are going to go away with the realignment of the road. It's up to the developer if he can try to retain any trees, but we can't mandate that they keep some. As far as the parking, I apologize, I should have had a parking exhibit on one of my slides here, and I did not. So I'll try to explain to you where the additional parking stalls are to be located. There will be 3 new stalls to replace existing ones that are around the clubhouse, et cetera. And 4 of them will be on Baldwin Park, 4 will be on Ben Davis Park. Rome Beauty Park will have 12, and there will be 15 on Gravestein Park. And I apologize, I don't have the park. I should have included a parking exhibit. They're adjacent to the road. Gravenstein is on the east and west side. Sorry, but
I'm sorry. Unfortunately, I don't mean to be rude, but we have, when the public comment period is closed, we have to, unless the chair opens it back up. Yeah, I understand. And you can definitely talk to any of us after the meeting, or, yeah.
anyway, so if that helps as far as the numbers on those streets. And again, I apologize, I didn't have a parking exhibit on here because the applicant did provide one. Regarding the empty envelopes, when this application came in, and it was originally scheduled for the January 19th meeting, we did that, send out, again, hundreds of notices. And unfortunately, there were 70, 75 that went out blank envelopes. They did not get the notice. And as soon as one of the residents called and informed us that, we immediately sent out another notice within a day or so. Subsequently, the applicant withdrew their application from that meeting, and so the meeting never happened. And they have now come back with this proposal at this time. So I hope that kind of clarifies that. We cannot, the city cannot mandate owner-occupied versus rental. Someone referred to, they want to see owner-occupied, and that's against the law, actually, we can't do that. Oh, and then the utilities. So there was a question about the utilities and being shut down during the construction. One of the conditions is that the developer contractor must maintain the utilities during that realignment of the road, so they will have to keep water, sewer, power going during that construction period. Yeah, they can't shut down everybody for that. So I think that's about all the comments that I
Okay, thank
noticed.
you. Any commissioners have any comments or discussion?
I guess go ahead, Mr.
I'll
Hager.
ask one real quickly. So I'd ask traffic engineer. Is there anything that the city can do on Murray Parkway for left-hand turn, particularly from Applegate onto the parkway? I know there's one sign printed on the concrete to, leave a space for people turning in and out. Is there anything else?
I'll speak in the microphone so you can hear me. So, honestly, the keep clear is the best option. The next worst, and we choose to wait for UDOT to make the determination, is they could stop all left turns, and I don't think that's reasonable. We've had enough trouble with the south side. I don't think I would make that recommendation, but it is within the restrictions that UDOT may be part of their access management, but I don't think that would ever become a problem. Bottom line, I believe it would just be an enforcement issue, the left turns. I don't think there's any way to improve the geometry of the intersection.
Okay, thank you.
So my question is what recourse do we have to ensure that the West Gate remains a privately held gate and only the city controls it?
That would be a good question, but from my understanding is it would be on the city right away, so Spring Clover Drive, and however they code those security gates. I'm not sure. It's all coded electronically.
But I mean,
so-
it's more of a question of how do we ensure that the city doesn't 10 years down the road say, now we want this to be a free and clear public right of way?
Well, I think the city would be held by its own requirement or request, so we can't go back on our own requirement, I guess is what I would say.
So if it's in the conditions, that's into perpetuity?
Yes.
And then I'll say one thing about traffic engineers. I'll defend them and tell you that they are professionals. Their stamp is their career, and so they do everything in their power to make sure that they offer accurate information. Whether we agree with it or not, they're looking at not just local areas, but they're looking in the context of the larger area. And what seems like large projects to the public, 42 apartments, in the big scheme of the road network, it's a very small number. And so often you will find that when a project of this scope comes into an intersection and the intersection is close to failing or already failing, it isn't going to change the fact that intersection is close to failing or remains failing. I've read a lot of traffic studies. I am not a traffic engineer, but they tend to be above the board people trying to do the right thing, just like everyone else in this room would do. So.
I think there was also a comment about installing speed bumps, and it's the preference of the engineer and fire department, street department, that speed bumps not be installed because they wreak havoc with fire apparatus, et cetera.
Snow plows. Yeah.
Other discussion?
I'd ask this group, if we have any comments regarding 8-foot, 6-foot masonry versus vinyl wall.
I mean, I guess my comment would be, not to sound like a former commissioner, but Scott Woodbury would always say how long he's been on this commission and how many of these meetings he's been on. I've been on this commission for 8 years, so I have heard a lot of these meetings specifically about Applegate. And I've heard a lot of these meetings about other projects that have been really similar, putting in a new development abutting a residential, really established residential neighborhood. And frankly, personally, I am shocked at the developer being unwilling to put in a masonry wall. The cost maybe is more, but the impact that you're having on those residents, and most developers and most people that come through here want to be good neighbors and want to work with the neighborhood so that they can have a better relationship with the huge impact that they are about to have. And to so fiercely be opposed to an 8-foot masonry wall is absolutely shocking to me. That seems like a very basic thing that you could do to mitigate your huge impact on those neighbors. So I personally feel like masonry is important and that the height is important. Like I said, I can't believe that they would be so opposed to something like that.
And to piggyback on you, it also dramatically improves the quality of the project you're developing. You get the benefit of it as well. So it is a two-way street.
I feel similarly about the fence on the west side. You want to be a good neighbor, and I say this to both the residents in Applegate and to the residents in the neighborhood. I also am shocked that there are people in Applegate that do not know the difference between Applegate LLC and Applegate HOA, which means the HOA has a huge job to do to make these things more clear. You need to be good neighbors to the people that are in your development. I really can't believe that there are people that don't know that these two things have been split and different. I knew it because I got this packet and I saw who the applicant was and that it was different than the HOA. There needs to be, and I understand that there has been frustration for years over this project. I understand that. But the communication between all sides seems to me to need a lot of improvement here. Whether you're for it or against it, there needs to be major, major improvement in communication. And those people that said that they didn't see the vote and weren't aware of it, go back and find your minutes. Those HOA meetings need to have minutes. So go back, find out. I think that there needs to be so much communication on both sides because this project, like you said, is going to have a huge impact on the neighborhood and a huge impact on the Applegate residents.
Thanks, Maren. I agree with what you said. Other comments? What about, should we talk about the road naming? Is that going to be an issue that was brought up?
It's
1C? I can't remember.
The county is gonna do it.
Yeah.
So we're.
I feel very comfortable leaving it in as a condition because the applicant can work that out with the county of how they're going to name it. That seems silly to me to be opposed to having that as a condition.
Yeah, ultimately it is up to the county as far as the addressing and naming of streets.
Yeah.
I think,
Susan, can you say that louder so their audience can hear?
yeah, sorry, ultimately it is up to Salt Lake County as far as the naming of streets, et cetera. But that we try to coordinate through our engineering division that does the actual addressing of the units, et cetera. So there's coordination so that people can get their mail and their pizza delivered, et cetera. So we try to work with the county for that.
Other comments or discussion? I guess we have a motion if someone's willing to do one.
Mr. Chair, I will make a motion that the planning commission grant preliminary and final subdivision amendment approval for the proposed Applegate condominium amended subdivisions on the property located at 770 West Applegate Drive, subject to the following 10 conditions as submitted.
We have a motion from Commissioner Ney. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
We have a second from Commissioner Hacker. Let's have a vote.
Okay, Mr. Ney,
Yes.
Mr. Hacker,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Ms. Patterson,
Yes.
and Chair Pearson.
Yes. Okay. Well, I don't know if congratulations are important or not, but.
Mr. Chairman,
You
I'd
need
like
to
to
make
make
another-
another motion.
Oh,
I know,
please,
you need to
thank
make
you. I
another.
forgot we had two.
I'll make a motion that the pardon me?
Go ahead. That's Commissioner Ney.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that the planning commission approve conditional use permit to allow the proposed Fuji townhouses located at approximately 770 West Applegate Drive, subject to the following conditions, 1 through 14? 17.
Thank you, Commissioner Ney. We have a motion from Commissioner Ney. Is there a second?
It was actually by Mr.
I think it was sport.
Oh,
yeah.
Mr. Hacker, I'm sorry. Mr. Hacker made a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Commissioner Patterson.
I just want to clarify, there's only 14, I think, conditions.
We're just clarifying the conditions. Is that correct?
Oh, sorry, say that again.
You're just clarifying our condition number?
Oh, sorry, yeah, there is 17.
That,
Correct.
we did it correct?
There is 17, excuse me.
Okay.
Correct.
Let's do a vote then.
Do we need to read those other three into the record just so
Yes.
the public knows?
Let's,
Guess we're good at leaving off some of the conditions. So, condition number 15, the applicant shall meet all of the RM15 zone regulations as section 17.120. Number 16, the applicant / property owner shall obtain a business license for the rental units. And then number 17 is the sidewalk on the proposed lot / parcel shall be extended on at least one side of the private access on Gravenstein Park Drive.
okay, now let's do a vote.
Okay, so Mr. Hacker,
Yes.
Ms. Patterson,
Yes.
Mr. Ney,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Chair Pearson.
Yes. Okay, well, both those passed. And so I'm hoping as this project moves forward that everybody can work together and hopefully we can all come out with a decent project where we can at least make some people happy. So I appreciate everybody being here. I think that was our last agenda item. Do we have anything from staff before we close?
I'll let, Jared is shaking his head no.
I don't have any updates for you, no. We're good.
Yeah, I don't have anything. I think we're anticipating a July 6th. I'm not 100% sure yet, but I think we are.
Yes.
So if you'll let us know if you're going to be out of town as soon as possible. Okay, Travis
I'll
is
be
out
in
of
the
town.
Netherlands.
Okay.
I am gone as well, and Commissioner Milkovich knows that. so
Okay.
She should be here.
I'll be gone as well.
Oh my gosh. So we're down to 4 already. So if,
I'll be here.
okay, all right. So I've got confirmation that at least most of you will be here. So we will keep that up. Otherwise, we don't really have anything.
Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn?
But not a time.
Oh.
8:55.
It's 8:50.
To adjourn at 8:55 PM.
Second.
Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.